So, welcome to another discussion of AI Salon, where we get to meet with founders and hear from them firsthand. Founders who are on the bleeding edge of the technology and really pushing the bounds of what it can do in AI. This time, I'm really excited to be joined by Mahmoud Felfel, and he is the co-founder and CEO of a company called PlayHT or Play.ai. So, how do you guys refer to yourselves these days?
PlayAI.
Play AI. All
Yeah.
right. So I I'm fascinated. I'm so grateful for a chance to chat with you, Mahmoud.
Thanks for having me, Tony. Yeah.
I love this area. PlayAI works on enterprise voice agents, and voice has always been. I've had such a fascination around voice because there's so much rich data in voice. Can you tell me about your history in voice and the things that you were interested in and how you got to play?
Yeah. I think we have been working on voice for the past like probably 5 years or something. Like both me and my co-founder, we have been like fascinated by um, like voice technology and like how much. I mean, it was very surprising, like how falling behind it was compared to like natural language processing and like now like large language models. And one of the things that I have been obsessed with over the years is just listening to content compared to reading it. And like if you do that a lot, you will face that problem where there are a lot of content on the internet that you can't listen to. It can be for many reasons, and I used to be very frustrated when if I try to buy like an Audible book and they say, "Oh, that book is not available in your region or like your country or whatever." So um, so like we said, okay, you know what? We are engineers. Let's solve this problem. And we started looking in like text to speech, the technology, like what's the state of the art, and what we started to find is that like actually what was available at that time is like good enough probably to solve this problem if you really have to, but also it was very clear talking with like a lot of customers like when we started that um if the quality gets to a level of human level in the way we talk we in the way we express emotions and that stuff, there is a huge opportunity here. And this is when like I mean that was clearly the number one reason that like customers would say no or like they wouldn't want to use it or stuff like it's because of the audio quality or like how much does it resemble like the human speech. And that is a problem that we decided to build play AI to solve for creators, for businesses, and this is what we have been focused on since then.
And we all know about sort of like the uncanny valley when you see AI generated images, or just it's just there's a trademark AI slop to images and some video and definitely text. Do you have that same sort of uh, like stigma around synthetic voice?
I think this is like a problem of that the technology is just like progressing and like there is evolution of like where we are going with this and always the way these models are trained, like they're trained basically on like massive amounts of data, and there will be always something like little bit outside of distribution and like that where the voice will start to sound a little bit like weird or like not really like the same flow or expressiveness of like the human speech, and this is where people will start to feel like because there's something happened like just in the like subconscious level for humans where if I'm hearing an audiobook, even you hear that sometimes if you're listening to an audiobook and you hear something heavily processed, even if it was
Mm,
done by a human, you will start to feel something off about this, right?
mm.
And that happens the same also with like images, with speech generation, with all of these technologies, where when there are some areas where there is something off, you start to feel like this is not right. And I think that's just the evolution of that. And now the work we're doing and others in the market like is progressing this so much to the level of to be exactly like how humans talk. And that's the north star for us, is like to get this technology to be at the place where it is indistinguishable from a human voice.
Yeah, I feel like the tolerances for voice are much lower than, say, for images or text. You can almost endure the AI, type of language when you look at images. But I can't listen to some of the older generation voice for too long, right? Like when you read an article, you could listen to the article, but or some of the older ways of synthetic voice, it was just not
Yeah, it was
tolerable.
very monotone, very robotic, like unemotional, like all of these issues. And again, like it's the same reason, like what our brain expects when it listens to voice is that it's like human. It's like it has emotions. You expect some when there's silence, you expect some breathing, like all of that stuff, like like the subtle things like that actually make a big difference. And all the even the speech disfluencies, like the ums and ums and like all of that stuff, like you're and all of that we started to see over time was like when the model get more and more human, you start to see these things, these emergent capabilities of like it's getting more human because now the model can do all of these things really well. Like it can interrupt, like it can do all of these like non speech, like these fluencies, like the non-verbal things, like the like or like sighs, or like look, like when you're like thinking, or like all of that, all of these things. And that makes a big difference in the experience. And actually I think, I mean, something that have been probably common, and maybe all the listeners will know about this, like notebook LM, they were saying like one huge reason that it was like very expressive is that they do like multiple runs, I think, on the content generation, and one of them is just to add all of these small things, like
Hmm.
right, like that stuff in
Hmm.
between just makes it a lot more human. And if you remove those, it feels a lot more like flat compared to like the existing experience. So I think these things make a big difference in like how we perceive content as humans.
And what were some of the big changes that allow us to get to sort of human level quality of voice in the last few years, that differentiated what we're seeing coming to market now versus what was available, like sort of in the Siri days or the Siri Alexa
Yeah,
days?
yeah. I think it's very similar to what's happening with large language models at large. That with these types of models, like like autoregressive transformers and like other diffusion models and so on, these models are uh, they 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 they're usually trained on like much larger data sets. And that what does this do is that it helps them to generalize way better across like all different types of knowledge in that data, build like much better representations. And that will result in something in the output, because the model inference or like output is just a mirror of what you trained it on. So, and these older generations of models, they needed very supervised data.
Hmm.
So, and you can't have humans supervise like hundred thousands of hours of speech. So it was very hard. Like most of the models of like Siri, actually, I met like many people who were working on Siri and some of these products. They had like maybe maximum like 100 hours of speech or something, because they needed it to be recorded in a studio, very supervised, transcriptions written by humans, like all of that stuff. And the result of that, you will get a model that can do only that voice in that environment, like studio clean environment, but it can't actually talk like humans, because humans don't usually just talk in a studio, like that. And also the model can't learn much from 100 hours. Like the same with like LLMs. I mean, like Llama 3 was trained on like 15 trillion tokens. That's like, I don't know, like 100 million books or something. This is like massive. Like there was like
Hmm.
just no way you get the same performance from models like from NLP, like supervised models with like way smaller data sets. And I think the other reason is around the architecture
Hmm.
itself. Like with this, like the reason you can use like sort of self-supervised like data here is that with this approach of like masking, like the next token prediction, basically like you mask the next part and then the model should learn to predict that. And the same happens with like music generation, with like image and like most of these models. And if you're predicting a pixel, or like like the next part of a music or speech or a word in text generation, they all follow the same behavior. But that what does this do is that it makes any data set sort of naturally supervised, because now you can just take the data and the part that's already there, you just mask it and
Hmm.
you get the model to predict that. So so all of this, I think, new improvements in architectures and data and all of that, that's what allowed training such large models that can really generalize across like speech or text or all of these modalities, and be able to have something very close to how humans like write or speak or all of that.
And we're definitely in the age of multimodal models. But how would you describe some of the general differences between training an LM for text versus, say, voice and speech?
I think um, I think one big part of it, like as I was saying, like models are just mirrors of the data they're trained on, and regardless if you're training for text or speech or a mix of both, you need the data to be. You need to really take care of the data you are training the
Hmm.
model on. You can just literally dump like everything on the model and expect like a good output. And so when you train a multimodal, you have to figure out ways of like how can we weave together like the text and voice and maybe images also like in
Hmm.
the same token space for the model to learn from all of these at the same time. And that becomes like a harder problem because when the model improves on one aspect, like with like image generation or voice, it might get worse in like text
Hmm.
generation. So there are some challenges there, and there are a lot of research in that area. So I think it becomes a little bit more challenging compared to having one modality that you're focused only on that modality. Um, but yeah, that's like one of the problems that now like everyone is working on solving, and there are many models in the market like the 4.0 from OpenAI, Gemini, like that have multimodality, and they're able to and you can see there also even like at least at this point, even like the ASR performance, for example, like the like speech recognition performance of like Gemini might not be as good as a model that was built for speech recognition.
Hmm.
And I think that one reason of that is that uh, a lot of the work that was done for that specialized model wasn't done for Gemini itself, but this is one of the areas of like where how can you get many modalities in the same token space and be able to get the model to learn and be very efficient across them without any catastrophic forgetting or like any issues across the other modalities.
Yeah. So you're really focused on human voice. Is it just all voice, or is there specific areas of voice that you're going after initially versus long term?
I mean, the way we are tackling this problem is we're taking like the priorities like one by one. Like the first one for us was to get the quality to be like just better than like anything that was done before us.
Mhm.
And like I think we did that like maybe 2.5 years ago or something, our first model that we released. Uh, but the problem with that was the latency. The audio quality was very good, but reliability is bad,
Mhm.
latency is very bad, and like like these other aspects. So we got that first, and then we started working on latency. So that was the next problem to tackle. And right now, our models are the fastest in the market by far, like the lowest latency, and that also one critical reason we prioritized latency over other aspects was because we wanted to target the real-time use cases when like
Mm.
people are talking to these large language models with voice in real time. And we have now like some of the fastest models in the market. And then the one after that is reliability and the more expressiveness, human-like. And I think our upcoming models will just take that experience to another level of expressiveness and flow in the conversation that will we think will just be very close to how humans talk in real life. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe give me a summary of where you've come from in terms of how the previous models have performed. Sounds like there's first focus on quality and then speed and latency. Give me a summary of that, and then what are some previews of this coming model that you're releasing?
Yeah. So, I mean, over the past like 2 years, we have been mainly focused on lowering the latency and the size of the model. Like, how can we train a model that's smaller,
Hmm.
but with more data and like more compute? I know there's this like chinchilla, like scaling laws where it's not only about the model parameters, but also the data and like the compute, like how long would you train the model and all of that. And I think we were able to achieve some like significant results there. We just released earlier, like in October, our V3 model. It's called V3 Mini, and that model it's very small in size, but it's very reliable and it's very very fast. It's like
Hmm.
it inferences on like very cheap GPUs in like maybe sub 100 millisecond, which is like very surprising and even faster than the older generation of models like
Mm.
from Google Cloud and Azure and all of that. We are now like across text to speech like the fastest in the market. And but because that was like the biggest use case we wanted to target. But at the same time, from the beginning of this year, we have been working on like rebuilding completely our infrastructure around model training and like the data pipeline, what type of data you want in the model, what behaviors, what should be the architectures we build the model around, and all of that. And that resulted in the new model we'll be releasing. We're releasing soon by the time this is out, and that model is built around conversations, because when we think about human conversations, which is like something critical for us, there are two things. You need to get to the user very fast, like the reply, so the low latency. And the other thing, you need context. You need like the big problem with the current text to speech models and everything in the market now is that when the model is replying to you, it has no context about what has been said until this point. Like the model is not even aware that it is in a conversation. So, and what like that results in a lot of issues where sometimes when you're talking to the model, and like if anyone goes to play.ai, you can talk to some of our older models there and see that if you're talking to the model, you might feel like okay, at some point, like I was like shouting or something, or like saying something, and the model replied just in a normal way, like there's no connection. You feel like how we are talking with a human. And that, again, back to the same point, that feels off, the
Yeah.
experience, like it takes you to that uncanny valley. Okay, like what is this? Um and we were training this model. This was trained with like, it's like a different type of like architecture, that we, every time the model is generating something, it is actually taking the whole context of the conversation until this point. So the model is completely aware that of the conversation until this point, and the response it should reply in what emotion, what style, how it should say it. And that makes a huge difference. Like when you see this, when I started to show it to some people, it's mind blowing. And because one of the other things like we are really good at, like from like the beginning, is like voice cloning. So we started to, okay, let's do like some two famous like speakers, and just for experimentation and demoing and like showing this to someone, and people couldn't tell, is this,
Yeah.
oh, this is a real podcast, like what is this? But it's all generated. And I think that will make a huge difference in the experience of like talking to these agents.
Yeah, I remember that was one of the early aha moments in the post Transformer days of voice models. Is the podcast between Joe Rogan and
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. That's right. And what was interesting about that, not just the voice, but also the content being generated. And you sort of referenced how in a conversation, the voice communicates a lot more data than just the text itself,
Yeah.
right? And now this latest model is incorporating it into.
Exactly. Yeah, like all the data, the emotions, the tone of the speaker, like everything. Or it doesn't have to be even speaker. Like it can be like two AI agents talking to each other, and you can see this in forms of like a podcast, or like a movie, or like whatever, like two characters talking to each other, or one of them can be a human and talking with multiple other characters, whatever. But from when a model is generating something, it's looking at everything else in that conversation, and be able to use all the tone and like all the context around that when it's generating its own response. And that makes a big difference in how human it becomes in the conversation.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because the world of voice is just, there's such a large surface area. And the reason why I was excited about voice is that, with text, we do relate with text across certain mediums, but we can relate with voice, almost in just infinite numbers of ways. And what I'm hearing is that with Play, you're really focused on that conversational aspect of voice, and you're really training your models for that. Um, I'd love to see what the new model can do. Do you
Yeah.
have anything you can show?
Yeah. I have a couple of demos for you. So um so this is a podcast I just generated now, from I just went to the 500 Global website, downloaded it as a PDF, and give it to the model, and the model generated this podcast between the two
So that was
characters.
the only input, which is just
Yeah,
our
just
website.
yeah. So, and you can see the output here.
Is 1 minute everyone's throwing money at pre-seed rounds, the next it's a total drought.
Well, there's definitely been a recalibration.
Okay, start from the beginning.
Welcome back to Seed Money and Skepticism, the podcast where we dissect the wild world of startups, venture capital, and everything in between. I'm Ani Sharman.
And I'm Dave Chen. Today, we're diving deep into the changing landscape of venture capital, especially in light of what we're seeing at 500 Global.
Changing is an understatement, Dave. It feels like the ground is constantly shifting beneath founders' feet these days. 1 minute, everyone's throwing money at pre-seed rounds. The next, it's a total drought.
Well, there's definitely been a recalibration, Ani. The frothiness of, say, 2021 is gone, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It forces founders to be more disciplined, more focused.
Disciplined or just desperate. I'm seeing founders jumping through hoops for seed rounds that would have been a walk in the park a couple of years ago. Like,
There are definitely more hoops. Due diligence is more rigorous.
So this is like a small sample, and there's like some other stuff where, based on the context, like they will just start laughing, or like you can see the emotions if you keep listening, and that's all like just emergent from the model. It just decides based on the context here, I should be laughing or I should be like confused or like all of that. And here are some samples that's like more emotional, just to show these types of replies. So this sample, I think this one is like more like sad response.
I can't believe you did this to me after everything we've been through. 10 years of friendship thrown away like it meant nothing.
Yeah, so this was like more of like sad and like, annoyed type of
I
output.
got the job. Oh my God, I actually got it. All those sleepless nights finally paid off.
So this is more like excited style.
I've spent 20 years building this company, and you think you can just take it from me?
Just like more like serious. And like one of the other things, like this model is really good in cloning, like what I was mentioning earlier. And you shared one of the voices you wanted to clone, which was this voice. Do you recognize that?
That's my toddler.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you had shared this with me before, like when we were testing, but
and just to be clear, my toddler doesn't know how to speak English.
yeah, but like the model, like basically the model
Yeah.
doesn't care much. Like we'll just take the the whatever like not speech, whatever voices are in that,
Yeah.
and we'll try to see like how would this sound like. And this is a conversation between some character we have and this voice, or what the model thinks this voice sounds like.
Hey there. I heard you just got back from a vacation. How was it?
Oh, it was amazing. I spent a week in Japan.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. I've always wanted to visit Japan. What was your favorite part of the trip?
Well, that's a tough choice, but I'd say my favorite part was visiting the ancient city of Kyoto.
Oh, cool. Kyoto sounds wonderful. Did you try any interesting local foods or visit a Zen garden or a temple?
Yeah, absolutely. I had the best ramen of my life in a tiny shop in Kyoto.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So it's funny because my toddler is going through speech training because he's a little late. But if he were speaking, that's what he would sound like.
That's what we need to see now. But yeah, I mean, now everyone can like take their toddlers' voices and try. We have like someone in our team. He took his dog's voice and he cloned it, and yeah, like so you can try that as well. You say like what your dog sounds like. That's like the next level.
And you can presumably have clone a voice of your dog and just have a conversation with your dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And did it sound like what would a dog? I mean, the only dog we all know that talks is like the
Scooby-Doo, yeah.
Scooby-Doo one. But like now you can make any dog speak.
Oh my gosh, it's fascinating. I love the fact that in those podcast examples, and we see this with Notebook LM too. These are agents just responding to each other, right? And the content is it basically voice in, voice out, or is it also calling an LLM? And how is what's the workflow like? The pipeline.
Yeah. So the current model we have, like this new model, it can generate its own content on its own, because it's just like it's like any normal LLM, but it's text and speech, so it has understanding of both. But when we are like adding it to our platform and to the API, we'd be also like you can as a customer, you can hook it up with any LLM or your own fine tune, and that's something we saw in a lot of customers. They already built their own custom fine-tuned, like they did a lot of work around text-based like LLMs, and now they want voice on top of that. So we had to provide something like this. So the model was trained that it can receive either it can generate its own response or receive a response from any other LLM and be able to generate that.
Incredible. Okay, so what's the adoption been like? What's the traction? Who you're working with, and what have you seen in terms of some of the ways that people are using Play?
Yeah, I mean, we have seen a lot of growth over the past 2 years, and uh, like one area we have been focused a lot on is around conversational agents, and we launched a platform around 5 months ago, and we have like close to like 150,000 agents created there now. A lot of customers, people like businesses, small and large, using it for all the different use cases you would expect around. Um, Customer support, sales, like, or even like just building the API, customizing it so much. Like we have a startup building, like they use just our API, not even the UI we have, and they're building around that like an AI recruiting agent that they're deploying on their website to interview people and all of that. So there are many of these like emergent use cases we're seeing, and but we as a company more focused on like the medium to like larger enterprises, because we like there are a huge opportunity here in and we see like that adoption in like larger companies, because customer support and sales and these use cases are some of the biggest usually uh, like expense, like like the driven like parts of companies, and everyone now is trying to think like how can we automate that, how can we, and we are working either with other companies that's working with us to serve those customers or directly with some of those customers. And yeah, like I think in general that's all under like how we think the future is going. Like this voice will be like the interface of like the of interacting with computing in the future across everything, even for everyone, like for us as like just individuals, and for companies, like all the communication between companies or companies and customers will be voice based. um, and right now, or like anything that's voice based now will be automated, and there are a lot of use cases that's like emergent from the automation of that. And also even for us, like I'm pretty sure in the next like 3 to 5 years, your like therapy, your like AI assistant, executive assistant, all of that, you will have many of these like AI agents in your phone, in your car, everywhere, just talking to you, helping you like with everything. And so that voice interface is like very powerful, and I think it will change the way we use our phones and our applications and the web in general. And that whole infrastructure, that future, is that's what we're trying to empower, either like other companies that's working with us or customers directly.
Are you able to mention some of these customers? Because you mentioned these specific use cases, because and you're talking about them because you're actually in process of developing these out in the wild, right?
Yeah. So I I will not mention like specific customer names, but for I mean like one of the very big toy manufacturer in the world is like using us now. They're building very interesting experiences. Like they own a lot of IP around like toys and those characters, and they wanna. I mean, they're exploring adding voice inside the toys and like selling them. That's still early stage, but what they're already doing, like on their website, they're now having these agents. They're building these agents where you can go talk to that character, and like kids, they love these characters, so they just go and they talk to it like back and forth, and it's powered by our voices. And some of the other use cases, one also of the like the other like gaming companies, they have now in all their stores, they have like these big screens, and like kids can go there and talk to these like gaming characters in real time and have them talk to them back and forth. And that just like was very interesting use cases. And the mainstream use cases are in customer support and sales, and we are working with many of the conversational AI companies now to deploy and build on our APIs to deploy these like in the largest companies and enterprises.
And you probably get asked a lot this question, but aren't the large frontier foundation model companies, won't that just commoditize what you're doing? Because they'll we have GPT advanced voice mode. Gemini has a voice, and won't that just, at some point, be good enough for some of these large enterprises?
I think the answer to that, or the reality, is a lot more nuanced than that. Like, the reality is like this market. I mean, if we really think that this is the future of human-computer interaction, I mean, unless we have, like brain waves, or like implants, or like another way of communicating, like which will happen in the like probably like the far future. Like in the meantime, voice will be the main way of interacting with computers, because these LLMs, what they made is that they are all natural language based, and that's a very interesting thing, because for the first time you don't have to, when you go to a website, for example, you don't have to follow a specific flow, click a specific button, have do like specific these instructions to get something done from your computer. Now you can just talk to it, and will be able to take that unstructured data and make sense of it and do something about it, like do an action or get reply to you or all of that. And the best way for humans to interact in natural language is with voice, like exactly how we are doing now. And so that is clearly will be a huge part of the future. And that means it's just like a massive thing, and also means that there will be no way that one company is able to serve really well the whole market. There's so many use cases here, from entertainment, gaming, like real-time agents for businesses, for consumers, for like different use cases, and everyone will need specific customizations. They will have specific needs. And another thing that honestly we're seeing in many large companies, they and that's like the subtle thing that there also, that there are a lot of customizations they need. Like they have a lot of, say, legacy systems you need you to work with, and like they have specific data. They might have trained some LLM in house they need to figure out how to use, and like all of these things, and working with companies to get to like a good solution that they can deploy and actually be useful for them. That is a lot of work that like the larger companies who just want to give something, an API, like as an infrastructure, and just give it to everyone like the same, l- that will not work, because you can't just go to OpenAI and ask them for a specific custom thing. Like that toy company we're working with, or like gaming companies, they need specific voices to be cloned that sounds exactly like that character they want. Like OpenAI will not do that. Like they don't care about
Right.
these things. So and like another example, like we are working now with some of the car manufacturers to deploy that inside the car on device, and figuring a lot of things with them, a lot of very custom stuff for them. And that just will not be the focus of many of these large companies, because what they want is like to offer is a general solution that works for everyone. And that's why I think the market is huge and the opportunity is very big. And whatever happens in the market, there are always like places where we can have like we can grow and have like big opportunity. And I mean, like end of the day, people can like speculate about what will happen in the future, and then there is what's happening actually in the market, that we're getting a lot of customers every day we're not able to serve. Like sometimes like we're just like barely able to handle like customer demand. And I think yeah, like this is the reality, that these big companies, there's still a lot to do to get to even like where we are now or what the market needs. And by that time we are also moving forward and like serving customers in better ways.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised by how much demand there is. Even at the scale of OpenAI, like at 4+ billion. The reality is the market is actually much bigger than that, because they can't serve the entire market. And we see yourselves and other companies that are actually growing very quickly because of the fact that people just underestimate how much demand there is.
Yeah, and a lot of these like large enterprises also, um they honestly don't want to work with many of the large labs, because of like questions around data sharing, and like like training on their data and that stuff, or and compliance, and especially if they're in healthcare, or like the financial sector, that stuff. and
Are
and
you
then
working in
yeah, we're
regulated?
working with like some companies in these sectors, and the best thing for them is just to offer them the full solution on-prem. They deploy, everything is secure inside their like cloud or whatever, and that just gives them like a peace of mind that they can't get with even any assurances they get from these like larger labs. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities in the market, and a lot of growth happening, that those labs will not be the only ones to capture.
Another question you probably get a lot is sort of the deep fakes, right? How do you think about safety, alignment? The fact, I think in this past election, I actually was surprised by how little AI played a role. I think there was a deep fake of Biden, a robocall with Biden's voice, but there was a few things like that, but nothing really that sort of came to meet the expectations of all the doomers that were saying that this is going to be a turning point for the election. But how do you think about safety? Because this is, everyone hears about um, the calls to the grandmother asking for ransom, that type of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's a problem we have been like fighting with and thinking about from the beginning because we know, like, I mean, from honestly our first model, once we saw the results, we were thinking like, oh, this can be used for like a lot of like bad things. Um, Thankfully, like there have been ways where we're trying to protect, like doing moderation and like doing some work around that to avoid this happening. But the reality is, I mean, as they say, like the cat is out of the bag, and like right now, even there's some open source models out there that you can use to do this exact stuff. You don't have to come to us and pay for something premium to do that. And I think the real solution here is that for the society to build like immunity like around these things and just when you hear something that sounds so off from like celebrity or like politician or something, that people will start to feel like, okay, this might not be real, like you need some verified sources, and that stuff that's starting to become like better and better. You see with Twitter, with like or X now, like with community notes, where so many times you see something generated and like you see right there, oh, this is AI generated actually because of these reasons. And I think over time, having these capabilities of like models that can detect fake voice and fake video and all of that, that will start to protect like everyone. But overall, I think the important thing is that the whole society over the next few years will start to build some immunity against like that type of content, and receive everything with like more skepticism, like compared to what today. Because right now, if you see like an image that sounds like very off, like you might say, okay, it's like photoshopped or like some stuff, because that has been there for like longer time. But that's not the case still with video and voice. But that when that starts to become real, and people get like educated like through media like and other sources, that this stuff now is happening, where you can completely generate characters and all of that, that's totally fake, totally generated. I think overall people will start to build like that skepticism around everything, like anything they see online, and then at the same time with other news platforms, or even like for calling or that stuff, like all like the telecommunication companies and that stuff, having these types of models where you can on the fly detect this is fake, and like inform the user, like how now when you get a call and okay, this is probably scam. I think very soon like Apple will be able to detect that, and we are working on some of these models that can detect this model, like the like AI generated audio, and we had a model that was like free available to use, and we're building a new one now to be able to, like, anything that's generated from our models, this model should be able to tell you if it was generated from it or not. And then the wider problem is like we're working with other partners to see like what can we do to have like some models that can overall across the market detect like AI generated content versus like especially in speech versus like real speech. And I think these are like some of the areas we're trying to work on. But honestly, I think the main problem is like the main solution has to be from like multiple partners, from the whole community, the whole society, and the other like news providers and other companies working on this to make sure end of the day you protect the customer who might get scammed or like stuff like this. So yeah, I mean, we are trying to do our part, and we'll hopefully be open sourcing some of these models in the future to make everyone like be able to detect that type of content. Yeah.
Yeah, like what you said about, it's actually helpful to build up some immunity, right? Because it's not like we can't be scammed today, even with the tools that are available.
Did you get an email from the Nigerian prince?
I thought I was my lucky day, and unfortunately, I'm still waiting. So tell me about what's happening next. What's looking into the future. What should we expect from Play, from the industry? Like where is it all going?
Yeah. Um, I think we continuing to train better and better models. Like our North Star here is to have uh, like just these voice AI conversational agents that can talk and interact exactly like humans and make that very affordable and easily accessible, deployable by everyone. And I see like massive value in that for like from like individuals to like medium-sized companies to larger companies. And this is our goal, and then like taking this now to every language. Like this model we're just releasing, it has 30 languages, and that's something we're taking like that with all our new models. um, and then from there, like we're starting to build more on top of that, like more tools and applications to make it even easier for people to deploy these models. Because what we found over time is just having a simple API is not enough for many companies to adopt your product, like or your model, like because their existing systems, you need something to work with their existing system. What actually people want honestly is that I have a human today that's sitting on the phone doing something very repetitive, like answering a call or talking to a customer or interviewing someone, very expected, very repetitive task, and I want to replace that human. and and that's it, that's the whole, like, like problem description. And you need to figure out, okay, just a voice model doesn't solve that problem. You need the whole stack of how can they put their data, how can they teach that model, how can they give it feedback, how can they build this whole agent, how can they deploy it. And that's like a stack that we are going deeper and deeper in over time, with the goal of eventually having something that you can just easily as a business take, deploy it, and have these voice agents managing big parts of your business without having to have like massive teams to grow your business. And that happened with, I mean, that one of the things like why software was like eating the world and like stuff like that, because software is just easily like scalable, and you can have something like one piece of software automation that can do a job of like 100 people, and that makes it much easier, much better for like so many businesses to scale and build a lot more, like and grow quickly compared to like having to hire and grow and have like massive teams. And the same was happening now in like many of these other areas. And I think that will just hit like the economy overall will change when you can start a company with very few people and like generate code, generate like agents that can like serve your customers, do sales for you, do like all of these tasks, like interview people, like all of that stuff with very few actual humans in the company. And like what was being like said multiple times before is that, one person billion-dollar companies, that will happen, and this will be the route to it, and this is what we're trying to build.
Yeah, everyone's talking about their, agents as, your own personal agent that could go out and accomplish tasks for you. And we certainly see a lot of founders that come in through here, with those type of projects. But I often ask, like, okay, well, it, that will inevitably be the case. But before everyone has their own agents calling businesses, the businesses need to have their agents receiving these calls, because it won't happen the other way. So I actually think it's going to be, your customers that will be adopting this first. And that's sort of like the signal that we'll see first around agents actually working, because, without businesses having the leverage that you bring to them, there's no way that, like personal agents and personal assistants can start doing everything that, people are saying they're going to be able to do.
So you're saying like businesses will have this first or customers?
I think businesses will, because as users, if we have a bunch of agents going out and making calls, that's going to just that will completely inundate and swamp businesses.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
That like so. I think the first thing that will happen in this path is that businesses will have agents and enterprise voice agents like Play, and then that will enable us to have our own personal agent that goes out and does that conversation.
Yeah, I think the growth is happening simultaneously, honestly, across like consumers and businesses. And it's very interesting to think about like the little bit of like long-term future, because that definitely will take time to like really grow into like large number of businesses and customers and all of that. But when you are at a point where your voice AI assistant is talking to the voice AI
Yeah.
agent from the business, and they're talking to each other, then is voice still the most like effective way of doing that,
Exactly.
and like what is the communication channel around this? That's like some of the long term things like we're thinking about, but yeah, that will take time because there'll always be like a percentage of businesses still didn't deploy that, and they will need to have like you'll need to have a voice agent to talk to a human and the other way around. But probably that will be like the eventual thing where there is some other way of communicating
Yeah, do they
between.
send JSON files to each other,
Probably.
or like have machine code that no one can actually understand or align? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, and my name there is like underscore Felfel, and also you can go just to play.ai and try our products there, and also my email is like Mahmoud at it's Felfel at play.ai,
Oh, wow.
so Fel at play.ai, and yeah, anyone can reach out to me.
And when does the new model drop?
It should be next week
Okay.
when this episode is available.
All right. Well, we'll go to play.ai and start playing around with it. So, Mahmoud, thanks so much for joining me. Really look forward to the new model.
Likewise, thanks Tony, thanks for having me.